Namaste, everyone. Michele Granberg here. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy, promoting radical compassion and empathy for all humans and animals. On this show, we're talking about animals used for entertainment. Zoos, petting zoos, aquariums, havens, and other types of places deprive animals of their natural habitat. They are stressful, confining, and boring environments. I'm joined by a local grassroots group that is concerned about the welfare of animals at Johnson Park. Stay tuned to learn how you can help the fight for innocent animals. Positive Energy starts right now. So I'm here with Nick and Ashley and Taylor. Thank you guys for being here on Positive Energy.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So glad that you guys are here. So we're going to talk about Johnson Park today. And I know that, as children, we all visited places like Johnson Park. And when we were children, we loved them. And we loved seeing the animals. I know that I did. But as a compassionate adult, I feel completely differently. And I know that all of you see it differently as well. And that's why we're here, to talk about that situation. So Nick, could you start us off by talking a little bit about why confining animals for entertainment is exploitive and harmful, and the difference between, what a zoo is, what they do, and as it relates to Johnson Park?
Sure, absolutely, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you for having us all on the show today. So, animals are here with us, not for us. It's pretty simple explanation. Animals are not to be exploited by us. We ought to not ask them for anything. We ought to not ask them for us to test on them for vivisection. For us to give them their fur, their skin for fashion, for entertainment, which is what we're going after today here at Johnson Park, right? They are not here to be gawked at and have fingers put in front of their own face. They are here to live their lives respectfully, as we are all here to live our lives on our own accord. And most importantly, animals are not here for dietary measures as well.
So what is the best environment for animals?
So the best environment for animals that I've come across personally are sanctuaries. Sanctuaries take animals.
Secondary to their own habitat.
Yes, absolutely. So sanctuaries do a really good job in mimicking the exact nature of where these animals are living in the first place, right?
That's right.
So they're not put on concrete embankments. They're not put inside of wired or mesh cages. They have roofs on their shelter, unlike what we're seeing here at Johnson Park, quote unquote, animal haven. They are free, most importantly, to do as they wish, right? So when you see
they're
an
not
animal,
forced to work, they're not forced to do anything.
Exactly. So if an animal wants to interact with myself or the rest of the group here, the animal is going to come up to us. And the animal is going to choose to have that interaction because that animal wants to genuinely have that interaction.
Right.
Now, here in a place like Johnson Park, which some people in the past have identified it as being a sanctuary, as being a haven, as being a zoo, the animals are forced in a very small, condensed, tight space to where they can't get away from us humans who are coming to the park to interact, right? So whether the animal wants to really be a part of the interaction and whether the animal wants to be included in the individual or the groups of people that are coming, such as families, entertainment, they have no choice. They have no say in the matter. And with a sanctuary, you're just not going to get that,
Yeah, so there's a big difference between a zoo and a sanctuary, and I appreciate that you're making that distinction. So we're talking today about why we'd like to close Johnson Park, but some people want it to remain open. So Ashley, can you speak to that? Why do some people in the public want it to remain open?
Sure. I've heard a number of reasons from people who want the animal haven to remain open, mainly centering around their own wishes, their own desires, saying things like, I have great memories of coming here when I was a child, saying things like, it's hard to get my children to put down their electronics, and this is something we can do outside. So there are many reasons like that. But I thought it was interesting that you brought up, that we've gone to these places as children and had great memories, because I happen to have grown up within walking distance of Johnson Park Animal Haven. And there have always been situations with the animals there that were heartbreaking. There was a famous bear who lived there called Monty the Bear. He had been taken by a hunter as a cub from Canada and brought to live in this man's basement, I believe in South Plainfield. Then at a year old, he was too big to live in the basement, so they brought him to the animal haven. And they put him in a cage that was 18 by 25, which I think is just the size of this room here, and as well to the ceiling, same size. And he spent the rest of his life there. I don't know if he ever had the door opened ever again once he was put in there. So a full-grown bear. And one of my earliest memories of literally my entire life was the bear banging his head on the concrete. So that's what he would do. He would bang his head on the concrete, or he would sway his head back and forth. And when you're 4 years old, 5 years old, you can already tell that's not normal. It's frightening. And I remember my mom explaining to me, and my mom is, by the way, the polar opposite of what you would call a liberal or progressive person. She's a very compassionate person, but she's not anyone who would say, be out there picketing for animals. But she was one who explained to me, I said, Mom, why is the bear hitting his head on the concrete? And she said, it's because he's sick. And I said, why is he sick? And she said, it's because he's gone crazy. He's gone stir crazy. So that's the history of where this animal haven is coming from over the decades.
Yeah.
And then, of course, over the years, because it's in a floodplain, it's actually designated by FEMA as a floodway, which is, the area surrounding a river that floods naturally pass through. When there's rainfall, the river swells up. It doesn't even take a big storm. It can take a high tide sometimes, because Raritan River is a tidal river. Over the years, that animal haven has flooded so many times. The most egregious example that I can remember, 1999, 9 horses drowned in Johnson Park Animal Haven because the level of the flood went over the roof of their barn in Hurricane Floyd. And there's actually a Rutgers University dormitory across the river from where the horses were. They could hear the horses screaming while they were drowning. I was told by someone who identified himself as an ex-associate of the park, who was in favor of the animals remaining there, said that the workers went up on the roof of the barn once they realized that the horses would drown, and tried to drill in through the roof to get to them. One horse survived because it had been on a treadmill in its stall, so it was able to stand up on the treadmill and keep its head above the water. So that horse survived. The county was sued by the owners of these horses. They were privately owned and supposed to be managed by a third party, not necessarily the park or the county. And there was some form of miscommunication, or just nobody took the responsibility properly of evacuating the horses, so nobody did it. And so owners sued the county, they won. And after that, I think everyone just assumed that it would never happen again, because gosh, you have 8 or 9 horses drown in a barn in this flood zone that FEMA designated flood zone. There's absolutely no debate by anyone that it's a flood zone. So I think everyone just sort of thought, of course they'll put together an evacuation plan, or of course they'll remove these animals to somewhere that's safe. And I think, so we were all kind of like sleeping on that for a while, I think. So fast forward to September of last year, when Hurricane Ida happened, it never occurred to me that their plan was to just leave the animals there during the hurricane. I literally didn't even think of that as a possibility. So I remember, I was online and people started posting pictures of these animals. The animals are coming up to their neck. There's, a sort of notorious picture we have of the deer up to its neck in the water. And people were saying to each other, gosh, are they really just planning to leave these animals here? What's going on? People were down at the park, obviously the people taking the pictures, then the people seeing the pictures, and others started coming down to the park trying to find out what was going on. So the result was, yes, their plan was to just leave the animals. As far as I can tell, the plan was to leave the animals. So at some point, I believe it was that during that night, while the flooding was taking place and the flooding was already high, I think it was realized that the animals were going to drown in the park. And so then at that point, I think that workers were trying to, at that point, get to them, move them, do whatever they could from then on to get them out to safety. And then, so of course, the people who had been aware of this the whole time went there the next day just to see, well, are they okay? What has happened to them? And we immediately noticed that over a dozen animals were missing. And these are not like subtle animals. These are fallow deer. Fallow deer are white deer. They look like albinos. They're extremely exotic. So when half of your very exotic herd is missing, including 5 healthy babies, that's extremely noticeable to people, including the fact that the next day we actually found a survivor running around Highland Park, which is a town away. So the Parks Department put out a statement. Everyone was emailing the Parks Department saying, what's going on? What happened to these animals? Another of our friends noticed a goat was missing. She immediately identified which one was missing. So we were waiting for this response from the Parks Department, and it came. And the statement said something to the effect of, all animals in our care are accounted for and are being fed and provided fresh water daily. So that was just shocking. I think nobody was expecting just a blatant denial. I think that was the last thing people were expecting, because when you can see the reality with your own eyes, when you have pictures in your phone all summer of the animals and the cute white babies, the albino looking babies, you have pictures the whole summer of the goats that were giving birth, so you know how many goats were there, and you can see that a dozen of them and more are gone, and someone says, oh no, they're all accounted for, and you go there and look and your number is right, then that makes people freak out. So I think people freaked out at that point. And immediately people started writing petitions. The first petition, I think there were 2, and they ended up gaining a total of 10,000 signatures, over 10,000 at this point. I think the bigger one has 7,000, something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's 8,000 and 2,000 about 2 weeks ago. That was what
Right.
it stood at.
And so right away, people were sort of saying, we're not going to accept this explanation that nothing to see here, nothing happened whatsoever. We obviously know something happened. And even if you claim that no animals died, how can you just leave animals in what you know is a floodplain during a hurricane? At some point, that means someone dropped the ball on their responsibility, because if you want to be the custodian of these animals, you can't just do things like that.
I really thank you guys for rallying and organizing around this.
Yes.
Instead of just saying who else is going to take care of this, you sort of pointed the finger toward yourself and began to step in. And
Yes.
so Taylor, what do you remember, and when did you step in, and what have you all been doing since then?
I agree with Ashley's account of things, and learning more about the history of this place has been appalling and exhausting, right? Everything that we find is worse than the last thing we found. If you Google any information, it just comes back worse, right? I initially noticed the animal haven because I commute right past it. And I've always been a fan of animals. I love animals. I love, I have a rescue dog, and I all sorts of, animal lover things to do. But I noticed them, and I saw they look sad. So I don't want to go there, right? Like, that looks like a really sad place. I don't want to, then they look sad. The enclosures are very small, and they're trying to fit 2 horses in a small shed-sized barn. Everything was seemingly inadequate, and everything looked sad. But finally, when Ida happened, it seemed like people were actually going to be ready to do something about this place. And so I knew I was going to step in as well. Ashley was organizing a group of people, and so I was just said, I'm here for whatever you need. Since then, it's been a lot of trying to rally people, but also a lot of government and a lot of bureaucracy, right? So we do have the petitions. Out of those 10,000 signatures, 2,000 are Middlesex County residents. When we found out that the park was a Middlesex County park, we realized that the county was actually the entity responsible for these animals. So we initially had some protests. We had the petitions. We were writing emails to the county commissioners. And in October, they said, actually, yeah, we're going to close the zoo.
Right.
And we all thought, great, like wonderful. We had put together a list of sanctuaries for all 80
14
animals.
animal sanctuaries stepped up and said,
Yeah.
we'll take these animals.
Yeah, and we got commitment letters for all of these different animals, and we submitted that to the county, and the county said, yes, we're going to do this plan that you've come up with. And we thought, that's amazing, that's wonderful. I think that it was a commissioners meeting directly following that decision, where a lot of the workers, like family and friends, some zoo workers themselves, came to the commissioners meeting and said, actually, we would like this place to stay there. We see value in keeping these animals. And the county waited until after the election, because they knew one of our protest techniques was to say, like, you have an election coming up.
Right.
They waited until after the election, and they rescinded the decision to close the zoo. At this point, they are in the process of having an independent consult look and see what we can do with the park, if it's plausible to keep the animals there, how much it would cost. We actually don't know the scope of that, like, entirely, because they've been kind of not very transparent about that process at all. So we actually don't know where our tax money is going at this point, which is also scary as a citizen, right? So yeah, it's been a whole lot of kind of just trying to also just kind of make people care about this issue, which is kind of frustrating. That
Well, thank you for your tireless work on this and constant work. And so we do want to say some of the animals did make it to the sanctuaries.
They did.
2 pigs and the ram made it to Uncle Neil's home,
Yes.
and Milton the goat made it to Goats of Anarchy, and they're
Yes.
all doing really,
Amazing.
really well, and people can check out on social media, and they're very transparent about how well they're doing. So Nick, what would you like to add to all of that?
So I would like to add that there has been, on record, 5 hurricanes that have happened in the last 22 years. And for the time frame of those 22 years, the animals that were there at this quote-unquote haven, right, are emotionally scorned from the trauma, or, suffer physically from some kind of illness that has occurred due to the event of the hurricane itself. And it's something that can be very simply avoided by just closing down the park and relocating the animals.
I would also just add that the flood zone is the impetus for all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the flooding is the most immediate danger to these animals. But it's become clear since we started investigating this place that this is just not a good place for animals to begin with, right? If it was not in a flood zone, this would also
Right.
be a problem. A lot of these animals are arthritic, are actually getting worse in their kind of lack of mobility. That was one thing that when the animals went to Uncle Neil's home sanctuary, they were appalled to see that the animals weren't walking very well. That was a common theme for the animals. And also, just to go back to Monty the bear for a second, and he's been gone for decades, but I do want to just say that his cause of death was kidney disease. He was diabetic.
Right.
One thing that has been true for this entire time, all of these years, is that the public can go and feed these animals anything they want. And they do.
They do.
So there are some people that just give them, carrots, and even that would be, in excess of their diet. But there are also people who go in and throw French fries,
Right.
donuts, sandwiches. We've seen all of these things.
Entire
in there.
McDonald's Whoppers
Yeah,
wrapped.
yeah. Right.
Just,
Yeah, just,
right.
It's
Chips.
kind of, it's disgusting, really, what people will give these animals. And in that alone, I think there's a case to just get these animals out of the hands of the county, because it is obviously not responsible.
Going
Yeah.
to what Taylor said, one of the pigs who was rescued by Uncle Neil's home was fat blind, which means he was so obese that his fat was actually covering his eyes and he couldn't see anything. And so they had to put him on a healthy diet, and he finally, we just saw a picture of him, he can open his eyes now, which is wonderful. He was stepping on his own belly, walking on his own belly, which was dragging on the ground. And it seems like the park saw nothing wrong with that. They saw nothing wrong with an animal being so obese that he was blinded by his own fat. And so I just think, how can you leave animals in the care of people who think that's fine?
Right, as their stewards. So if people are listening to this right now and they're getting concerned by listening to what you're saying, how about each of you give something that people can do? Like people want to take some action. What can they do? Nick, what can they do?
So we have 2 petitions on change.org where you can sign and show your support that way. But more importantly, we do have a commissioners meeting this upcoming Thursday. I believe that is the 17th at 7 p.m. that you can attend. And if you cannot attend that, we have another date because they are bi-monthly. That will be the 31st at the end of this month that you can attend to speak out. So each person, whether you're a constituent or not, you're allotted 5 minutes of time to speak on behalf of the animals. So my biggest thing to people today that are out here listening is to use your human privilege. Use the voice that you have, that you are born with, in order to speak up for the voiceless. Because these animals, they can't defend themselves. We're essentially all that they have.
Well, thank you, Nick. That's beautifully put. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
Absolutely.
What do you want to ask the public to do?
Sure. I would just agree with Nick. I would say that because this zoo is under the purview of Middlesex County, the Middlesex County Commissioners are the ones who are making the decisions on the zoo. They are the ones who initially said that they were willing to close the animal haven and release the animals to sanctuaries. They are also the ones who then heard from their employees, associates, went back on that. So if you can contact them, you can email them, you can come to the commissioners' meetings, as Nick stated, especially if you're a resident of Middlesex County, but even if you're not. We have gotten a little bit of talk from them stating that, well, a lot of the people who come and speak here are not from the county. We want people from Middlesex County. But, it's great if you're from Middlesex County, but I think the fact that so many people care so much about this, we've had people driving from Philadelphia, many people driving from Philadelphia, just speaks to how bad this whole situation is, that it would inspire so many people to take their time and their effort and their gas money, which we know is insane, to come here on behalf of these animals. So yes, I agree with Nick.
Yeah. In some ways, it's amazing that we're even still talking about this. Why are we even talking about it? Why is it not already done?
That's the
Do you
question.
want to add anything to that, Taylor?
I would just agree that especially if you're in Middlesex County or you know somebody in Middlesex County, make sure that they are on board with the petition, with coming to the commissioners' meetings, get as involved as you can. I think one of the strategies right now is moving the animals to the 2 other animal havens that they have in Middlesex County. Which is incredibly frustrating because they're under the same watch, right? So they have 2 other facilities exactly like this, where we also would need eyes on the ground, right? So I think just kind of looking at those places, and also just if you're nowhere near here, just looking at whatever zoo you have nearby, right?
Yes.
Every town seems to have one of these weird places where animals kind of go to be sad, I think.
And I would also say, just to add on to what Taylor mentioned, there are 2 other animal havens. Well, I think one is an animal haven, one is classified as something else. But there's one in Merrill Park. The one in Merrill Park is actually the only place where they've admitted an animal drowned during Hurricane Ida. So they haven't admitted any of the Johnson animals drowned, but they did admit one in Merrill Park. And yet Merrill Park is where they're transferring some of these animals supposedly to be temporarily safe from any flooding that may occur. So obviously that's not great, so we'd like to oppose that as well.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry, real quick.
Go ahead, Nick.
So, I'm telling everybody to show up to the Board of Commissioners meeting, but I'm not giving you guys the address. 75 Baird Street. It's the New Brunswick Administrative Building in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And just to add real quick to what Ashley had said, so we have been and are investigating the lack of transparency that Middlesex County has been giving us on behalf of 2 missing pigs, 5 baby fallow deer, and 15 rabbits that are left unaccounted for.
And we
no
just
answers.
we found out again, right, that one of the missing pigs died in January. That's the
Just
one
now.
who had a heart attack.
Yeah.
So we've had to,
Just-
because they have had such a lack of transparency, we have had to make so many OPRA requests, Open Public Records Act requests, where if something is classified as a public record by the state, as a citizen, you're legally entitled to get a copy of it. The county has to provide it to you. And we have been delayed in getting these records that we're entitled to as citizens, but eventually they come to us. And one of the records we just got stated that one of the missing pigs that we've asked for his whereabouts for months, they knew he was dead. He died in January, but did not feel it was necessary to tell us about it. So it continues.
And
Wow.
I think just on that, I think it's just important when journalists and news outlets and places like yourself will
Yes.
take us seriously
Yes.
and give us a platform. I think that that's really important. So if there's any other ones watching, I would say
Please reach
also
out.
do some of this journalism as well, because it's really important stuff. And at the end of the day, we're kind of a group of citizens that
Right.
they're going to take a news story very seriously.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how you, I mean, it's sort of depressing.
It
This
is.
is all very depressing.
It
And
is.
your eyes are on the front line, and we want to stay hopeful. So are
Right.
you? We only have actually a couple of minutes now,
Oh,
but
yes.
what, like, message of
Yes.
hope do
Oh,
we want
yes.
to kind of
Oh,
end this on?
absolutely.
It's
Okay.
still hopeful.
I will give you a message of hope. Everyone who I have ever spoken to about this issue who is not personally affiliated with Johnson Park or the county is 1,000% in favor of closing this animal haven. Like I said, I grew up in Highland Park, the town just next door to the animal haven. So all the people I grew up with grew up as kids going to this park. And I said to them, what do you think about this park? They said, it's disgusting. They said, it's always been disgusting. They said, it's still open? Why is that place still open? So that's the message of hope, which is that people who know about this place and don't have direct benefit from it all want it to be closed. But, the word has to get out there. Many people don't even know about this place. And the people who do assume that it was gotten rid of long ago.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's what I would say.
I would
Okay.
add to that, and I would just say we've gotten animals out.
Yes.
We've improved the living conditions of the
Yes.
animals in there. Their water bowls were frozen solid when it
Right.
was freezing at the beginning of the winter.
Right.
We made sure that they at least are changing the water.
Right.
Just a lot of eyes on the ground
Yeah.
Yes.
have meant a lot for
We
these
can make a
animals.
difference. You guys have
Yes.
made a difference.
Yes.
We need more people. We need a critical
More people.
mass.
Yes.
We still want to continue to take action. Any final words, Nick?
Yeah, I just want to put the projection on news media. It's so prominent that news media, News Channel 12, Star Ledger, Home News Tribune, that we all get involved with this, because when the camera goes on, the narration, the storyline changes.
Right.
And what we once thought it was is not what it actually is. So please, news forecasters, anchors, get involved with us. You can find us on social media. Friends of Johnson Park, we are on Facebook.
We have a Facebook page. You can go and like us for any news updates or to message us to get involved further. We appreciate anyone inside or outside of the county to lend support or help. We always need just, a lot of boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for starting this. I really appreciate
you.
it. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
being
Thank
here
you.
today.
Thank
We're out of
you.
time, but people, I hope that they will reach out to you. So thank you all so
Thank you
much.
so
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Salute.
Thank you. We're wrapping up another enlightening show. I'd like to close with a Sanskrit mantra, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, which translates to, may all beings everywhere be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and to that freedom for all. Thank you, Monday Morning Flowers, for the beautiful floral arrangement. Thank you for watching. Check out MicheleGranberg.com, go vegan, and join me next time on Positive Energy.